What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the LivBtr Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Siano, CEO of SABRE Advisors. On today's episode, I have Meg Crockett, a New York City-based board-certified health and wellness coach with a background in creative communications from Columbia University. Passionate about helping people discover their highest state of well-being, Meg has guided several hundred clients to lasting symptom relief and vibrant health. She applies a functional health approach to uncover root causes of health challenges, going beyond symptom management to create a pathway of transformation and long-term well-being. I hope you enjoy this episode.
I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the LivBtr Podcast. This is your host, Jay Siano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just wanna have peace.
So on today's episode, I'm blessed to have Meg Crockett, a board-certified health coach. How are you, Meg?
I'm doing well. Thank
Amazing.
you for having me.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah,
I'm excited to learn about all the things that you're doing.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of synergies, and there's a lot of the stuff that you're doing. We started talking a little bit off the air about, but why don't you tell us what a certified health coach does?
Yeah, so my training is all really about looking at the body as a system, and symptoms or things that are going on with your health really as messengers. Your body is communicating with you and trying to help you reach a place of balance and harmony in your system. And what I've really trained in and specialize in is looking for root causes of why we feel the way we feel, and that can definitely be absolutely emotional root causes, energetic, as well as things like toxicity or food intolerances, parasites. That's a buzzy word right now.
It really is.
All that kind of stuff.
Actually, a doctor friend of mine that I was with 2 weeks ago scared the hell out of me about sushi.
Mm-hmm. I don't eat sushi.
See?
I know too much. It's true. I'm sorry.
It's funny because I only had it once since that conversation, and I was like, I'm not stopping.
I know.
But now You
can still enjoy sushi.
You can still enjoy avocado rolls.
Which I do.
See, there you go.
I do like poached salmon, or I'll do the California roll at Happier Grocer because it's cooked. So I'll do that. So I have a sushi experience. You can still do sushi. You just also want to parasite cleanse a couple times a year.
Interesting.
That's what I would say.
We're getting the good stuff.
I know, we just went
5
right
minutes
there.
in. All right. So I love this podcast because I'm curious, and I get to ask people that are experts at something about things that I'm generally intrigued in and how I could add that into my lifestyle, and my listeners can do the same. Yeah. So there's a lot of talk, obviously, about different things, including menopause, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, my feed is full of menopause, and it's like, so when you're talking about like toxicity and testing and all these things, obviously that's a way to find the root cause of why you're feeling a certain way, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Why haven't I done any tests to date? And like, why do people not really widely talk about it or suggest it? And I'm like heavy in the space, known for like talking about the things that are going to help you live better, hence the name of the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, these are the questions, I would say. I think in my own experience, I got into this work because I needed to heal myself and survive. And I really just thought, like, I will do whatever that takes. So I'm going into this with absolutely no bias. Anything that works, I will do it. That could be conventional, that could be holistic, it can be woo-woo, it can be straightforward. Whatever it takes, sign me up. Like, that was the point that I reached about 5 or 6 years ago. And through that, I did my own integrative health training purely because I wanted to know how to heal myself. I had no intention of this becoming a business, of this becoming probably my life's work. Like, zero. When I say zero, it was purely selfish, like, because I had been going to a lot of doctors and really not getting the answers that were really helping me feel better, heal. I was actually getting worse in some senses. So to your question about why don't we hear about this more? I think a few reasons. I think that when you first learn about the role of toxicity or parasites or even, triggers like food intolerances or things like that, it's inconvenient. You're kind of like, no, that can't be it. You know what I mean? Like, totally. It's inconvenient because it's going to change maybe how you approach things. It's kind of interesting. Back in 2013, it was actually before my own healing journey. I was in grad school at Columbia for communications, and we had to give this 20-minute talk from memory, just using images. And even back then, I was already thinking about this stuff, and I gave a talk about the chemicals in personal care. And I think people thought I was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long time ago in this wellness world that we live in today. Yeah.
Goop, I think, had just become a website, and she was getting so much flack for that. And I was like, no, she's right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But people really were not talking about it, and there weren't that many brands in the space. I think, there was JSON and maybe one or two other brands that were kind of already out, but it was not what it is today. Yeah. And I talked about how we often think about what we're putting in our body, but we don't think about what we're putting on our body. And I think we just kind of culturally have a little bit of a cognitive disconnect almost, because it's a lot easier to just assume everything is safe, everything is good. We don't need to become informed and educated about the products that we're using, about what we're eating, even about our own bodies, because we have doctors and we have, organizations that are supposed to take care of that for us. But the reality is we're at a point, at least in the United States, where we are exposed to a high level of toxicity, higher than ever before. It's in the air, water, etc. So I think the responsibility is on the individual to learn about it and then just incorporate practices that help you keep your body healthy. And once you learn about it and you start doing those practices, it's actually not so bad. Yeah. But I think there's a little bit of a hurdle people have to kind of get over. You know what I mean?
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Have you ever gone through that?
Yeah, of course. Because I think, people probably look at my daily routine of things that I do now, which is you've continued to evolve over the years. But I was very unhealthy. I was very, I was a DJ. I was in nightclubs. I slept all day and was out all night and doing all types of things and drinking too much and partying and all the things. Yeah. And, my lifestyle today is the exact opposite of that. And I think that most people think that people like you and I are maybe a little extreme, which is super understandable. Yeah. But I think you kind of continue to evolve and incorporate these things that are working for you because you feel good. And there's nothing better than feeling good. Yeah. Right? So it's but the reality is am I exposed to heavy metals? Am I exposed to mold in my home? Is that right? So I don't know the answers to that stuff. Could I feel even better? Or am I opening Pandora's box by taking this test because I feel amazing? And do I want to get a Pronovo, done? And,
I've done that.
And what are your thoughts?
I thought it was really cool. I planned to get another one. I did my first one. I've been in New York City since college a long time, but I did a year in Austin, Texas in 2022, of course. I work in wellness. I'm kind of a biohacker, so had to do Austin for a little bit. But I did one in Dallas while I was in Austin. And it was really interesting, and I'm planning to get another one next year. I think that's what I'll do largely for certain types of screenings. Yeah. But for me, it would be an every other year. Type thing. It's expensive.
It is.
But if you're into preventative care, which I certainly am, You know,
you just want to be as educated as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
You went to Columbia. You have to be.
I'm a nerd. Yeah.
You know, you
There's
have
a little
to.
L Woods going on over here.
Listen,
I
love that.
Yeah.
It's, you know, so.
I like info.
It's funny because like I do too.
Yeah.
But like info scares me sometimes, right? So it's like
I think that's
I
normal.
used to have the mindset where it's like I don't want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I,
Same.
You know, but I think you're right. Like at least I've been way better. I got a cardiologist appointment last week.
Yeah.
You know, just to get checked out. Right?
Yeah.
Like my business partner actually insisted that I do.
Yeah.
And
it's
great.
good to just know.
It is.
And structurally, I think that's really where the conventional system shines, because you can get scans and you can have things looked at, and you know, like I think the systems are complementary in that way, the functional and holistic world and the Western system.
Sure.
They each offer things that the other does not. Because, you know, often people will ask me like, well, why didn't my, you know, I have Hashimoto's. Like, why didn't my doctor mention that I shouldn't be eating gluten or something? And I'm like, it's just not in their training.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right.
You know, it's really kind of that simple.
No, it's interesting because I was never really that in tune with food allergies until my son was born with a massive tree nut allergy. We learned that the hard way, even though he was tested like all kids are on some level.
Yeah.
So he had a terrible reaction to a pistachio, and it was like the most traumatic experience of. I actually lost a friend in college that had a nut allergy. Wow. Which is
those are serious.
Insane.
Yeah.
And you know, just terrible to even think about. Like it's how do people meet you and decide what tests to take?
So I started a private practice back in 2020, 2021. And people find me through really word of mouth, Google, social media for sure, things like this, podcasts where they hear kind of my approach and philosophy. And a lot of people come to me because they just say, I resonated with your story or your philosophy. And the results, I would say, that my clients get too. Nice. So yeah, I would say I don't have sometimes people will ask, you know, do you work with a specific demographic? And I would say it's more of a psychographic. It's more people who are generally more proactive about their health. So
not surprising.
Wide age range. I mean, right now I have clients age 24 to 79.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. The 79-year-old is really incredible, actually, and is being proactive. Again, she wants to have peaceful later years in life and like not be a burden to her family. That is a great mentality to have at an age like that, right? It's pretty cool. So I would say the common thread with my clients is that they have had a lot of symptoms that they've gone to many doctors for over years, sometimes more than a decade, and they just have never gotten answers. And they know intuitively that something is off and their body's trying to tell them something, and they need the guidance. Because I think the other thing that we're seeing currently is the beauty of social media is that there's so much information available, and people telling their experiences and what healed them on podcasts and TikTok. And I think that's wonderful. And every individual person, the reason that their body is maybe, you know, they're having bloating, they're tired all the time, they're depressed, they're anxious, whatever that is, it's always a few things. It's never just one thing, and it's so individual.
Totally.
Which is why if you follow me on social media, you'll very rarely see me say, everyone should take this probiotic or everyone should do that, because that's not really the case.
It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
It's not. Yeah. What I do see is a common thread, though, is everyone improves from detoxification, opening up drainage pathways, and often parasite killing. Just depends. Depends on the person, but
So
those are sort of the
what do those
common
mean?
things.
Because I don't, again, like being in the space, these are like new things that I don't really know much about, which is exciting.
Cool. Yeah. So again, if we kind of zoom out and look at, again, I'll focus on the United States, which is where the majority of my client base is. We have inundated ourselves with various chemicals, toxins that are inhibiting the immune system, the mitochondria, and essentially digestion, the gut, the brain. I mean, really the entire
Which you're
body.
Hearing a lot about now. The gut microbiome is like, definitely a popular thing. Yeah.
And what causes the gut microbiome to disrupt? If you ask me, my perspective is often it's some kind of toxicity at the root. So this comes in many forms. Pesticides are a huge one that are a big part of our food system. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I probably consumed gallons of pesticides on things that were healthy, right? Like whole grain, this and that. That stuff wrecks the gut, does a lot of other bad things. So usually there's like there's sort of upstream, there's a disruptor, I would say, and then the bacteria get off balance, and then parasites are attracted to toxicity. That's why we are seeing kind of an explosion of this happening right now. Your face.
It's so funny because I literally like wanted to forget that I had that conversation 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that's how it starts for me. It's like, no.
It's usually the thing you want to forget.
Like I don't want to like have to remove another thing. Yeah. But at the same time, I actually had I went to the hospital probably 10 years ago and in terrible pain in my stomach. Yeah. And I got all the tests done in the emergency room, all the things. And they said it was diverticulitis. And I kind of like didn't really believe that that's what it was. Yeah. And they gave me an antibiotic and so on and so on. I got better. But I had sushi literally the night before this happened. And to me, I just was like, it was the sushi. Yeah. So like, and I actually just for the first time, like 10 years later, had this happen to me like 6 months ago. The same exact thing. And again, it was like, you have diverticulitis. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I suppose you're not supposed to eat seeds and I'm not careful about that by any means. For sure. And then apparently like, that's been debunked that it's not about not eating seeds with diverticulitis and blah, blah. Yeah. So I say all that to say that I feel like the first round, at least, was definitely associated with the sushi that I ate. So I've always felt that way. Yep. So why'd you stop eating sushi?
So this whole conversation is so funny because I never set out to be like the mouthpiece for parasites.
But you are. Best of luck.
I think anybody...
You've been chosen.
Anyone... It's just such a big part of healing right now that I think a vast majority of practitioners are talking about it. Yeah. And it's the topic that kind of captures everybody's imagination and horror like at the same time, which is valid, let me tell you. So it's so funny that you bring up that story because I have heard that story probably 40 times from different people. Yeah. Like, maybe not sushi, but I went to a barbecue and I ate something 10 years ago. It's actually quite often around 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago. I don't know why. It's like people will be willing to let something run for that long and then they're like, okay, now I'm really serious about getting this fixed. But I will just tell you, I had a client a few years ago. Pretty young. She was about 25. She had been in and out of urgent care and really emergency rooms about 6 times a month for, by the time she came to me, consecutively, probably about 2 years. And
monthly.
So,
like that many times a
multiple times a month for debilitating pain, like stomach, gut type of pain. And similar type of thing. They said it's diverticulitis. I think that was the main thing that they said. And similarly, they would give antibiotics, maybe fluids, and send her home. And she just never felt well. So
I don't like where this story's going.
We did. And I, her case is what I would call like acute, right? Like she was really, really suffering.
Right.
And not getting care that was helpful.
Sure.
So I put her on the Cellcore. Are you familiar with Cellcore?
I've heard of it, but I'm not. Yeah,
they're sort of known for their parasite protocol. Okay. It's really, really well designed. So I put her on that along with, some other supplements and things, and she ended up passing, I would say, like thousands of parasites. Mm-hmm. And she got so much better within 3 months. She hadn't been able to work. She was somewhat debilitated. She went back to work. She was a dancer. She was back to dancing. Broke up with a sort of toxic boyfriend, like got her own place, like literally
changed her life.
One of the biggest transformations I've seen, because the other thing is parasites aren't just, it's an infection essentially, but it's also bringing down your energy. It's holding on to toxic emotions, right? But again, people listening, you don't need to be scared. This is an extreme story, but I say it just to illustrate that.
And she was obviously in very bad pain, to be going to an emergency room or urgent care 6 times a month. I mean, that's exactly. For a long period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I'm using this story to illustrate the point that, this problem can be very real, but of course it's on a spectrum and it's often not that severe.
Yeah. But would you say that like the majority of like the population has some sort of parasites?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I would say if you are someone that is in perfect health, your digestion is flawless, your sleep is perfect, your energy, your focus, your mood, everything is just dialed in.
Are you that person?
I'm pretty close to it.
So
I'm
it's
close
possible.
to it.
Yeah.
I think when I'm not, it's almost self-inflicted because I'm like working too hard.
Do you drink alcohol?
Rarely.
Okay.
I don't. I used to.
Yeah.
And then I did a full year of not drinking. Felt great. Then decided, all right, like what if and more from just a kind of
social
like sober curious type point of view. And now I just find that it's very like specific when I'll choose to maybe have a drink or not. But to be honest, I feel like it's never really worth it.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, I stopped 2 years ago. So it's like, and I used to spend too much time thinking about when was going to be the opportunity for me to have one. I got sick of that. I hear that. Know? And I got sick of the hangover, obviously.
Yeah, and even if I have...
It's a superpower. It's amazing. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I wish I figured it out way earlier in life.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think there's kind of a funny thing that happens when you do... I've done a lot of like detoxification and building my health and nutrition and dialing in on my habits and things like that. And I think because I have a pretty healthy baseline now, like when I throw something in the mix that doesn't really align with that energy, I actually almost feel it even more.
Me too.
And my body is like, no, like we don't need that. Don't do that. It's not helpful. So
So what, speaking about your habits and your routine, so what is your normal daily routine look like?
Yeah. So on a, weekday or weekend, ideally, I'm starting the day with some kind of, let me back up. I will wake up and make coffee at home. I add collagen. I'm really into the Four Sigmatic coffees right now. I believe they're toxin tested, which is nice. And they have lion's mane, which is a great, functional mushroom for brain and cognition. I like to add some collagen so that there's some protein in it, and I eat breakfast at the same time. So the first thing I do pretty much is eat within usually 30 minutes of waking up. I wake up hungry, and I'm not a fan of working out without having eaten first. Yeah. I think for men, it can work better, but I think for women, it's not as good for our hormones.
Sure.
Kind of makes the cortisol, you're going to get a cortisol increase when you work out, which is good. It's good stress. But if you haven't eaten yet, then you're also kind of throwing low blood sugar in there. It's just kind of not so great. Yeah. So I'm not one of these people that does a class super early in the morning, like 7 a.m., because I have to eat first. Yeah. So I'm waking up, I'm having breakfast. Then usually either I love yoga. I love like a hard reformer Pilates class. Like in New York City, I love No Far Method. Of course. I go and I'm always like, wow.
Have you done natural Pilates?
Once, and it was so hard. Yeah. I need to go back.
I did it
Do you
this
do
morning.
It? Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to go back. That one is really tough.
Yeah.
And I like running.
Yeah.
I was a runner in high school. So I feel like running has had kind of a bad rap recently, at least.
Oh, it's so popular though. It's
I know.
Crazy.
I know.
Like, run clubs are like all the rage.
You're right. Yeah. You're right. I think in the wellness space, there was this whole kind of shift towards like
lower impact, like right, that it's bad for your joints and things of that nature.
And like the whole makes, too much cortisol and that kind of thing. Yeah. And I think we needed that conversation because I do think people were overdoing it.
Totally.
But I think it's making a comeback right now and becoming, like you said, the run clubs and things like that.
Running's huge. Yeah. I feel like especially like, a lot of the people that I know are really into like hybrid athlete training.
Yeah.
And High Rocks is taking off, which is interesting,
Yeah. Yeah. So
what
I
else?
love to run. I also just love running because you get
outside. Right?
Yeah. And you're outdoors, which is just great. Then what else in terms of like
what else
workouts?
do you consume or supplements or, just routine in general? Yeah.
So supplement wise, it varies. I actually generally I take some parasite stuff preventatively almost every day. Okay. So if you're listening to this, work with a practitioner. They'll help you dial in on what's right for you. But
so you could eat sushi?
I could. Yeah, I could.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I just find that it helps me feel really good. My gut is really healthy. Like things are generally running well. If I do get sick or something, I usually kind of recover pretty quickly. Things don't really take me out, like knock on wood, Yeah. I might be a little like more fatigued, but I don't really get like super sick,
Any hot and cold therapy in there?
Yes. I love hot therapy. I've done cold therapy. Yeah. I went through a big ice bath phase in 2019. Okay. I did the whole Wim Hof thing, which was wonderful. And I don't know if you feel this way. I actually wish more people understood the breathwork aspect of cold plunging. Sure. Because I see a lot of people hopping in and I'm like, no, you need to like do breath work. Totally. That's how you're training your system. Yeah. So maybe I should do. What do you think? I know you do it every day, right?
I think breath work is like really underrated, in general. And I have some friends that are amazing that, I think that's going to continue to grow in popularity. Yeah. For me, it's like, I'm a fan of doing hard things and I'm focused on like neutrality, right? Cool. So like my days are really intense and I'm juggling a lot of different things. like most people are, but I'm juggling a lot between teams and clients and, running businesses and family and kids and all this stuff. I didn't get home last night till 10:30 from a basketball game, and, boom, I'm up and I'm gone, and that's every day. Right. So, so ever since I stopped drinking, I've been able to first off, never be off, right? So I'm used to having probably, let's call it on average, 10 fires or difficult situations come up in a day.
Okay.
And I'm unfazed by those situations, and I can think very clearly through them. And I think that ice baths for me have helped me tremendously with that, because I don't really believe so much in the health benefit of the ice bath as I do with sauna. Yeah. There's a lot of science to back up sauna, right? Sure. Yeah. But with the cold, for me, and I love the fact that people hate on the, ice baths, because it's just fun to do. Yeah. I get it. But it's the same thing as anything else. It's if it works for you, right? If I go into an ice bath in the morning and I get out and I feel like I had 37 cups of coffee without having coffee, it works for me, right? So, and again, it's definitely helped me with resilience, where I'm just unfazed. And I think the combination of not drinking alcohol, never having that cortisol effect from dopamine and everything else, from being depleted from drinking previous days in the week. Yeah. That's really helped me achieve this concept of neutrality, which my good friend Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talks about. Yeah. I didn't really know until her and I had very in-depth conversations about it. I didn't even know that neutrality was a thing. And that kind of meaning, how do you apply that in your life, would you say, or what has that allowed you to? Yeah, it's allowed me to just go so much further in every scenario in my life. You can kind of handle whatever comes up. Completely, right? And actually, she goes a step further and talks about not celebrating wins, which I think I need to listen to her talk about this. Yeah, I don't know if I have. It's crazy where, because hearing somebody talk about that, it's counterintuitive, right? Because most people would say, you should really celebrate wins, and you should, all that type is to give yourself grace, and she's more of the, no, you actually you should. Great, you got on stage and spoke in front of, hundreds of people. Amazing. Off to the next thing. Yep. Right? Which I think there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah. Because if you're so anticipating that thing, and then you're done with it and you're I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I'm going to go have a cocktail. Celebrate that thing, right? Who's getting further ahead? The person that has those speaking engagements woven into their calendar it's nothing and goes right to their next meeting, or the person who's taking the rest of the day off because they're so happy that they did it and didn't have a panic attack, right? Yeah. So again, it's if you're able to achieve that concept of neutrality, I think it just weaves into every area of your life where you could be more resilient. And I think resilience is probably the most important quality in a business person. Oh, yeah. You have to be. I wish I had a button. You just gotta get up every day and go again. Doesn't matter what happened. Nobody cares. Before. Yeah. And we're all dealing with trauma. Oh yeah. And I'd love to go back 5-6 years to hear about your healing. Yeah. But that, that's one thing that becomes more obvious every single day, is that everybody's dealing with trauma. Right? Yep. Everybody has a difficult life on some level, right? Yep. It's not just the person who is struggling, with financial things, or, I lost both my parents. I'm not even 50, it's life's hard. Yeah. This is a big thing that comes up with every client, is dealing with stress. And I think a lot of people initially want to try to sort of get rid of the stress in your life. And I really try to teach people that is not possible, especially if you are potentially an ambitious type of person who is speaking and putting yourself out there and doing things where you might fail, or you might be criticized, or
someone might not, we are just not in control of everything. I'm a big control your controllables person. And for me, that looks like what you're talking about, which is training yourself to just better handle what comes up so you're not so thrown. And that's the beauty of the ice bath. Like, you are training your stress response and your nervous system and learning to, so my mom is have you heard of somatic experiencing?
Yes.
Yeah. So my mom is a somatic experiencing psychotherapist.
Okay.
So I've heard about the nervous system since
Your
I
whole
was
life.
a little girl. Yeah. Which is very full circle now because it plays a huge role in everything, including illness. Yeah. Often that's a lot of dysregulation or being stuck in a more fight or flight, type of place. But that's where I think ice baths, just like you said, we may not have the exact data and all the research about the health benefits, but the nervous system and the stress response benefit, I think, is very clear.
Yeah.
To your point.
And it's not something that you have to do every day.
Right.
I just think that generally speaking, a Pilates class, right, is challenging.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go to that's not my preferred method of working out. I'd much rather go to a gym and lift weights and hop on a treadmill and, do what is more comfortable to me. But when it's like, hey, you should do this class, I'm very curious. Like, I want to understand, first off, like, fitness concepts in general is like my life's work.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I just need to understand every single concept from a business perspective and how I could potentially help it scale. And where, what's around the corner, right? Mm-hmm. Like if whatever. We could save that for a whole nother conversation. But ultimately, it's, the things that I'm interested in that you're doing, again, are, how, like, I don't know anything about gluten. Like, for me, I know that if I eat dairy, I don't feel great, but I don't avoid it, right? Like, I know these are the things where, like, what tests should every person do to at least create this, like, baseline? Do you have a suggested?
Good question. I would say if you're someone like many of my clients who experiences, I would say the top things that I hear frequently are low gut function, like not being regular, which I tend to view more as like a drainage issue. Like your body is not draining properly. We hear a ton about detox.
Sure.
Drainage, I think we hear a little bit less about. Detox is your body kind of labeling what to put into the trash, and drainage is the trash truck picking up the trash and taking it out of the body.
Interesting.
So it's poop, pee, sweat, breath. We do a lot of detoxification through breathing, which I think is partly why we feel so amazing after breath work.
Right.
Or even an ice bath where your breath gets going.
Sure.
So I think...
Is it tied to nutrition as well?
Which part? The
being regular.
Yes.
Is it? My wife's a dietitian nutritionist.
Yes,
so I'm fortunate to have that access.
Yes.
To the things.
It is absolutely. So nutrition is one of those fundamental things that I do hope more people start to understand, like what is real nourishment and what is not. I think again, very common to find among clients that they just really don't like have the information about what they need, what is really good for their body. I tend more towards, I say paleo-ish. I do eat some grains. I am gluten-free because I have gluten intolerance, not celiac, but I have certain genes that if I was eating gluten, I would potentially develop like an autoimmune type of response. So we don't want that.
No.
So I just don't dabble and I feel much better for it.
Protein? Are you protein forward?
Yeah, for sure. I'm very into, when I think about food, I'm thinking about more like nutrient density, and also the word clean is so tough, but like non-toxic food, you know?
GMOs.
Exactly. Like try to eat organic
seed
as much
oils.
as you can. Exactly. Avoiding things that we know are inflammatory or that cause toxic accumulation. So yeah, organic, definitely non-GMO, seed oils, refined sugars, like some sugars, okay. I'm not anti-fruit or anything like that, but
carbs,
just not overdoing it. I think we need carbs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I eat a lot of carbs, especially because I run.
Yeah,
Again,
right,
you know, you kind of have to.
You're burning it.
Yeah.
You need the energy.
If I didn't, I wouldn't be. I ran a 10K on Thanksgiving morning in the rain.
I did that, but I did 4 miles. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Mostly
and
hills.
I got to tell you, like I haven't run outside in a long time, and I felt it, man.
It's hard.
It's hard. And you realize how shitty of a runner you are when you show up at an event with a bunch of runners.
Totally.
Like I was like on mile 1, and like there were people finishing. I'm like, wow, like that is impressive.
Running is also part of what I love about the sport. Is it is one of those sports where you have to be pretty dialed in on your habits in order to have a good run. Like you do have to.
And I did it fasted. I don't know if that's like, you know, I do everything fasted.
Would be hard for me. Yeah, but again, I think this is a little bit of a difference with men and women.
Yeah.
I think that men can do that more easily.
But I'd be curious. Like I just did something called 29029, which is climbing the equivalent of Mount Everest. You have to finish in like 36 hours.
Wow.
And it was the first time I realized that like my nutrition was going to be a huge role in it, right? So I show up at 5 a.m. in Mont Tremblant, Canada, and I'm with a group of people, and they're like, you got to get your carb loading in now.
Yep.
And I'm so used to not eating till like the afternoon. I just don't.
Do you intermittent fast usually?
Yeah, but it's just become like
you're like not hungry in the morning.
Not hungry.
I wake up.
It's tough for me to eat.
Starving.
I used to, but it's like I'm so used to not eating that like I've trained myself almost to the point where I can't reverse it, and I want to. Yeah. But so I was like literally consuming like anything pancakes and like anything I can get my hands on, because I know I just needed energy. I needed fuel. Yeah. And throughout the 30 plus hours of that hike, where I got like 4 hours sleep at some point, it was all about just eating every type of food I would never typically eat, which I think is what got me through it. Like people hit a wall like from not really dialing, and I didn't know how to dial in like the nutrition, because I'd never run a marathon. Like I don't know how to really get the most out of your energy, like and you have to consume sugars and like people were hitting walls and they'd give them a Coke, not a Diet Coke, like a Coke. And then you just pop back to earth like crazy.
You need glucose. Yeah. I mean, I found there was a few years where I wasn't able to run very much when I was dealing with some health stuff. Yeah. That's kind of how I know I'm really through it, is because I'm really able to like log miles now, and I'm fine. Awesome. And I actually feel better.
How frequently do you run?
Probably twice a week now, so not that much. And
how many miles like on those runs?
5K most of the time. Nothing too
awesome.
Wild, but I usually go in Central Park, and there's a lot of hills.
Yeah.
So, 5K with those hills are like...
it's real.
But it's so beautiful. But,
see, I'm not a runner, and like I'm starting to embrace it.
Yeah.
Because I also think that like
it's a good sport.
That type of mileage is like, it's not easy if you're not a runner.
Right.
But it's not, you're not running 50 miles where like, I have friends running 100 milers. I'm like, how can that be good for you? You're going to pay for that down the road. Like there is no way that your body is not going to get jacked from doing that on a pretty frequently, no less. Like that's a real tough thing for your body to handle.
Yeah. But I mean, so to your question around just nutrition and testing, I think it's important for everyone to know what works for their body and what doesn't nutrition-wise.
Yeah.
And again, this is where everyone's going to be a little bit different.
What works for you is not going to necessarily work for me, etc.
Exactly. And I do think there's still a misconception out there that gluten-free has to do with being low carb, and it is not related at all. Right. Actually, gluten for many people is a health issue.
Right.
So it's not, I'm gluten-free, but I eat, organic pizza. Rice pasta like 3 nights a week because I'm waking up and running in the morning. And that's just gives me the, and I have usually grass-fed meatballs on there too. Yeah. So it's protein. I'm big on just the balance of good, well-sourced, grass-fed, all of that protein, and healthy fat, fiber. A lot of people are just not eating enough fiber, I find, or don't even really know what it is or where they get it from. And then complex carbohydrates. Like I eat a lot of sweet potatoes and potatoes. Yeah, stuff like that. And I'm very into seasonal too. Oh, okay. So because it just works with the way our body is kind of designed with the seasons. Like at this time of year, I sort of joke, I tend to not eat salads as much. I'd rather have my salad like cooked and like in a soup, I'm eating like I've made a butternut squash like pasta sauce this week that has a bunch of great like garlic and coconut milk and it's dairy free and gluten free and it's so good. And I'm like, oh, it's my salad. Yeah. Exactly. On my pasta.
In a different form.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of it is helping people understand that like eating healthy is not salads and low fat, and it's actually like nourishing yourself. It's bone broth. It's steak. It's like, and you start eating that way and your energy comes back. I consume a lot of bone broth. It's amazing. And
it's so easy on the go.
Oh, yeah. It's so hydrating in a coffee too.
Cup, just, it's the best.
So yeah, I think in terms of, you were asking about testing too, I would say if you're someone that has a lot of digestive, brain fog, maybe skin issues, it's probably worth getting a gluten intolerance test if you never have, because those are common threads that I see. Often people experiencing stuff like that, or even just kind of general inflammation, may have a gluten intolerance. I do think it's helpful, again, if you're someone that's experiencing some stuff, to at some point get a toxin test. You can do it with me. I like the Vibrant. That's my lab partner. They run a test called the Total Tox, and I
want to do that. So we'll talk.
We should do it. Yeah,
I'd love to do it.
It's really fascinating. Yeah. I mean, it shows you your pesticide levels, BPA. Wow, I'm sure. The BPA scores I see are wild. I mean, the microplastic stuff is so real.
I think we consume, a credit card worth of plastic every, something or other. I forget the time
it's like
frame.
Once a week, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's wild because I have, some of my clients are already pretty dialed in on their health habits. They just maybe want to optimize or do preventative type testing. Sure. I actually have quite a few men in their 50s who are already really healthy, like you, who are just thinking, I just want to set myself up for the second half and make sure, let's just take a look, what's going on. I want to make sure everything looks good. What else can I do? Which is always fun.
That phase.
Yeah. It's always fun working with people like that.
As much as I don't want to,
I know. Yeah. But the good thing is, all of this, let's say you run a toxin test and some mycotoxins, some heavy metals, whatever, some things come back. I mean, I've never seen a test where nothing came back. Put it that way,
We live in a pretty dirty environment. Right? It is what it is. No matter how careful you are, you're consuming, you're on the go. You're exactly. It's impossible to avoid it at all costs unless you want to live in a bubble.
Right. And to that point, I think it's information. It's good to take a look, see what's going on, get on a detox protocol, or even just learn how to do it, because then you can kind of do it yourself every few years, something like that. But we can't avoid everything, and you can't live your life that way. I'm very 80-20. I mean, I still color my hair.
I'm 90-10.
It is toxic, but it brings me joy.
Of course.
So I think if it's there's a difference between toxins that we knowingly expose ourselves to, let's use alcohol as a great example, that we knowingly might have some, we know it's not great, but there is a consequence to it, like usually, maybe sometimes not.
A little bit of a trade-off,
Exactly, but something like, for me, getting my hair color done, like there's really no noticeable downside. Right. I just feel happy. So I think that's where that 10-20%, do what you need to do, and then make sure you're drinking clean water. That's fundamental. I say distilled water is really the distillation process makes the cleanest water. Distillers are slow. I don't even own one. I just sometimes get distilled water at the grocery store, and I kind of mix it in with, I also drink just Clearly Filtered is a great brand. It's super simple. It's like a Brita filter, but way better. Yeah. Their tests, their scores are the best I've seen for like a filter. Yeah. Better than Berkey. So, just if you kind of get down the basics, you're doing better than most people. Water, organic food as much as possible, get an air filter for your home, do some sauna, sweat, workout. That's covering more bases than I think people realize. And cleaning up your cleaning supplies and stuff like that.
Well, these are all amazing, amazing pieces of advice. Yeah. And that's a great segue as we wrap up. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Meg Crockett Health. It's MEGCROCKETT Health. And same on TikTok. I'm not on there as much, but a little bit. And my website is megcrockethealth.com.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. This is so fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity. I just wanna have peace.